Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 160, and this show will review all the comics I've read this week in one show, so we go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week, and everything in between. Only 18 comics this week is kind of a light load. There's no DC Rebirth books because it's like that 5th Wednesday in the month, so it was kind of a lighter load. So let's get started. What was number 18? What was worst pick of the week? And that was Spider-Man 2009 issue 14. I have been pretty disappointed with this book as of recently, especially since this whole Civil War II tie-in. That's not really a Civil War II tie-in. So they're in the future. They're in 2009. You have Captain America split up from Miguel, and it just seems like this is a glorified fan service issue because it's mostly, you know, these characters that if you've read the Spider-Man 2009 before, you know, the whole relaunch of the character, you appreciate it. But for me, someone who's only been reading newer stuff, I just kind of feel like it's really fan servicey and not really story driven, these type of issues. And again, it's not really Civil War II, or it's not a strong Civil War II tie-in. So overall, I was kind of bored with this issue. I don't really know what direction this series is going, so I gave it 2 stars. And that was number 18. Moving on to number 17, I was a bit disappointed with the series because I was looking forward to it, and that is Grimm Fairy Tales Apocalypse issue 1. Now this is the continuation after Grimm Fairy Tales issue 125, and it's more of an event book, but at the same time I think it ties in a little bit too much to the previous event. So I didn't read, what was it? Red Dawn? No, I don't remember what the last event was, but it was a long one, and this had to do with the Horsemen, the 4 Horsemen, and they kind of continue that story with this issue. It was nice to see, you know, like Sydney and Robin and Marion and all those characters back together, especially under Pat Chan's writing, because you know he enjoys these characters, but it just kind of felt all over the place. The villain wasn't interesting, and just the story wasn't there for me. I don't know if I'm going to pick up the next issue, so I gave that 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 16. Which, I mean, I only picked this up because I wanted to see Colleen Wing, but Civil War II, Choosing Sides, issue 5. Pretty sure the next issue is the last. I'm going to get that digitally, too, because of Jessica Jones. There's always that one character. But yeah, this issue was mediocre at best. The Nick Fury story had some dialogue, which was good, but at the same time, it wasn't really that interesting. It definitely played to, like, Original Sin story. You know what I have to say? It didn't really tie into Civil War II. That was the biggest thing. And the artwork, when they are talking, feels very stiff. And it kind of felt stiff, too, with the last issue. Colleen Wing was okay. I liked seeing the story between her and Misty Knight because they're such good friends. That was cool. But the story kind of ended abruptly. And then Alpha Flight, I dropped Captain Marvel because of Alpha Flight. I've never really been interested in that team, so I wasn't very interested in the story, even though they had like a real Canadian person in it. I don't remember what role in Canada he has. I don't know what his role is, but he's a real life person, and he's in the government of Canada, and he made an appearance in this issue. So overall, though, none of the stories really stood out to me, so I gave it 2.5 stars. Just not really worth picking up, in my opinion. So what are we up to? I think we're up to number 15. Let's see. We are, and that is Tomboy, issue 7, which I feel like this book has so much potential, and I'm reading it because I see that glimmer of potential. But it just gets weird. It always gets weird. First of all, the opening was kind of boring. It was about, like, this body, and I'm sure it's connected to Tomboy, I'll call her, Addie. I'm sure it's connected to her character in some way. Her father's dealing with it, but it was like 7 pages of boredom for me personally. Just a lot of exposition, not really interesting dialogue. Artwork I really do like, though. It kind of like this horror look to it, but at the same time it kind of feels magical girl, so I do like the art style. I think that's the best part of the series. And I like how Addie's dealing with her grievances with killing her best friend, but then when it goes into the magical girl stuff, it gets weird, and I'm like, I don't really get where they're going with this world, it's a little bit too weird, and I think they need to explain some things before delving into that stuff. So overall, there's some positives. Again, I definitely want to see where it goes, but I gave this issue 2.5 stars. Alright, so moving on to number 14. Disappointed with this finale is the last issue of this series, and that's Hyperion issue 6. Now, I really liked this series because I didn't expect anything from it. I remember picking up issue 1 just kind of on whim because, like, oh, the description sounds interesting. He's a trucker. What's that all about? And I was really drawn in, but I think it is kind of like the blues of Marvel canceling things too soon and the writer rushing its ending. I don't think the writer knew this book was going to end, and you could tell from issue 6. It tries to tie loose ends, but doesn't really do a great job at it. And that's the worst part, because the artwork's really good. I like the coloring. And Iron Man comes into the story. I thought that was kind of cool. But it ends with it kind of where it started off, where I feel like Hyperion didn't really learn much. He kind of leaves Doll high and dry and goes with his love interest, and that's pretty much it. Because he's like, oh, I made mistakes, gotta go. And Doll's okay with that. It just kind of felt all out of character for me. Again, I think the most positive thing is, like, again, the dialogue work was good. I liked Doll as a character, but it just definitely fell into the spell of Marvel canceling this series canceling this series too soon and not knowing how to wrap up this series. So overall, honestly, I'm going to give Hyperion issue 6 2.5 stars also. Wasn't very impressed with that issue besides the artwork. Alright, so now we are moving on to number 13, which is Nova, issue 10, which I really like the beginning of this issue. It's just Sam Alexander going on summer vacation, and then you know, he talks to his friends. His friends still say, hey, you're Nova. He's like, no, I'm not. He goes, hugs his mom, and he goes into space. And that's cool. Like, I like that story. It's still a little, you know, it's not the best. Like, it's kind of short. But then we go into space, and things get, not weird, but I guess rushed, I would say. So it's Sam Alexander's looking for this Nova power source, and he's like going into space. He finds one of his friends to help him, and he finds the Nova power, like they're roaming in space, and Nova's like, oh, I'm gonna check here. He's like, oh my god, the power is here. It was just so quick, and it felt so underwhelming, that ending. And I just feel like the space stuff needs to be developed more, because anytime I go on space I kind of groan, because like they just don't have a story here, which is weird because Nova, it's about space, that's the type of hero he is, but his story is always better on Earth, and I think this issue got to prove that. Overall I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't a horrible issue. Artwork's okay. It kind of does coloring kind of has some weird glares to it, like the way the colorists use lighting, but it's okay artwork. So overall, it's an average issue, very average issue, kind of middle of the road issue. So Nova issue 10 gets 3 stars. Alright, so now I am moving on. What are we up to now? Moving on to number 12. And that is Han Solo, issue 3. So this book is gorgeous looking. I love Mark Brooks' artwork. He does all the covers for Star Wars, and that's why I kind of buy this book. It's just that amazing artwork that you're seeing Han Solo race spaceships and all that. It's cool. But the story is kind of on slow motion here. Like, I kind of like the mission of him trying to figure out who the traitor is, but it's something we've seen a billion times with Star Wars, so the story is not as interesting. I still like seeing Han Solo's personality and all that, but I kind of want more from the series. But the artwork's gorgeous and a reason to pick up the series. So Star Wars Han Solo issue 3 gets 3 stars. Then we are moving on to number 11, which is Spider-Man issue 7, which is a Civil War II tie-in. I like that the artwork changed, which is weird, because I usually like Sarah Pichelli's artwork, but I still don't like the facial features she does for Miles. And I think the facial features were a lot better here, even though there's some over-exaggerated, I guess, facial expressions, but I think Miles looks a bit more like Miles with this art style, which is weird to say because Sara Pichelli is the one who created Miles in the first place. So it was just a weird skip when once this series launched, he really kind of looked different. And I know he's aged, but he just like looked like a different person with the facial features. But yeah, overall, I like the artwork. Like I said, I enjoyed that. The story was very much a forced Civil War II tie-in. It's Hulk, you know, the whole Rampage Hulk story, which is so old news in the Marvel Universe that Hulk is dead. That's been such a major storyline in Civil War II, and you're still dealing with that. It's just so behind, which is weird because Brian Michael Bendis is writing this story, who's writing Civil War II. So there's a lot of weird coincidences with this story. But yeah, half of the issue is about that. But the enjoyable part, surprisingly, is with Miles' mother and father. Even though I think the mother is 100% out of character from who we knew she was in the previous Miles Morales book. Before she died, she just like became a new person with this new series. But also I would say the best part of this issue is definitely Jessica Jones. Really like her interaction with Miles' mother, like that she was the cliffhanger. So I think in all, she's the reason that this issue is worth picking up. But the Civil War II stuff is very old news, and this should have came out like months ago if they wanted to do this story. So Spider-Man issue 7 gets 3 stars. Not a bad issue. Artwork, in my opinion, improved, but Civil War II stuff needs a lot of working on. Alright, so moving on to number 10, which is Guardians of the Galaxy issue 11. So this issue wasn't bad. I actually liked it a lot more than I expected because it actually had to do with the Guardians of the Galaxy team. For many issues now, they've just been splitting off characters, and it just feels like, oh, well, it's a Rocket Raccoon book this week, but next week or next month it's going to be a Kitty and Peter book. It's not the Guardians of the Galaxy. But now it feels like that. It's the team deciding, should we go to Earth, shouldn't we? Should we trust Carol? Should we trust Tony? So it's kind of a generic, Civil War II tie-in book, but it was good. I liked it. I think these characters were necessary to be in the loop because they have a relationship with Carol. They have a relationship with these characters. Gamora has a relationship with Thanos, which I didn't even think about until I read this issue. So I liked it overall. Artwork's not bad. There's times where I feel like it's a little bit too cartoony, like with Groot. It's just kind of weird cartoony, and then it gets really realistic with some close-ups with the things. So it's like the art is a little inconsistent. And then sometimes there's only like a line for a mouth and like 2 lines for eyes. So I think it could be a little bit more detailed and consistent. But overall, like I said, I liked it as a tie-in. It wasn't great. It was kind of forgettable, but it was needed, and I think it's worth picking up. So Guardians of the Galaxy issue 11 gets 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 9, which I am disappointed this is so low. Usually this is in top 5. And that's Silver Surfer issue 200. And I feel like it's low because Spider-Man was kind of put in this issue for no reason. And it's a lot of the issue. Horizon Labs is in it. I understand because it's Dan Slott writing the book, but I don't think he was very necessary to have in the book or Horizon Labs. The best part of the issue definitely being Dawn and her mother, and realizing even after she sees her mother, it's not like this magical ending that her mother cares. She just never wanted to be a mother and she wanted to escape it. We don't really know why. Maybe in the future we'll learn. But it's Dawn, even after telling her all these amazing stories, who gets hurt, and her mother just walks away. And Dawn realizes the family she has is perfect, and it just maybe was not meant to be. Her mother's not a good person. So I thought that was an interesting story. I like that. But again, there are parts that I think definitely, there are some lull moments in the issue. So overall, Silver Surfer issue 200, it's a bit pricey. It's $4.99, and I give it 3.5 stars. It's not a bad story. Definitely worth picking up if you like Silver Surfer and you've been liking this run. But if you haven't, I don't know if you need to pick it up. It's not like it's an anniversary issue without really being an anniversary issue. I don't know if they did anything really special with Norrin's character, but they do a really good story with Dawn's character. So now we're moving on to, I think we're up to number 8. Let's see. Pretty sure. We are. Number 8 is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, issue 6. Not over 4 stars, sadly. Or not over 3.5 stars, sadly. Sorry. I like this book a lot. I like that it does things only comics can and the TV show never could. Like, there's this monster that kind of takes away the Power Rangers' powers for a short amount of time, and you see their costumes like kind of scratching off and fading away. I really like that. I like that effect. I like, that we get to see them in their civvy clothes a lot more than the TV show, because they had Japanese footage for the TV show. But I will say I want to see more character stuff. Even though there's a lot of cool small moments between characters, I want to see more character development. And same for the villain. I want these battles to mean something, and I haven't felt that. So Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for me gets 3.5 stars. That's number 8. Now moving on to number 7. Which is Jupiter's Legacy 2, issue 3, which I thought was a pretty good issue. I liked it. I liked that we get to learn more about the father of the son. I can't remember his name. His father, that he was an old superhero, and we see he's kind of a jerk, but he was actually an old villain, and he's kind of a jerk, and he doesn't really want to help his kids or his grandson, and by the end, though, he's like, alright, I'll help you guys, and it's these kind of villains being heroes, which is the big theme of Jupiter's Legacy 2, is villains. You see them in a different perspective trying to defeat the heroes. So I like that. But my favorite scene of this issue is with Chloe, who, gets this piece of graphite and does the Superman moment where she just takes it out of her pocket, holds it in her hand and turns it into a diamond and says, hey, marry me. And I love that because obviously it's the switching of roles, but it's her using her abilities to do that. I thought that was a really nice nod to Superman and utilizing her powers also. So still, I like the artwork. I was going to say, I'm still not a huge fan of the art because it's kind of the scribbly line type artwork. But yeah, overall I thought it was a pretty good issue. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was a pretty good addition. So that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, a lot higher than the series has been. The Amazing Spider-Man issue 17. I thought this was a pretty good issue. I like the callback with this Francine character to Electro's daughter in MC2, Aftershock, had a very similar costume, so I like the callback there. And this is very much a backdoor pilot for the Prowler series coming up. I want to see next month, or very soon. I know it's with Marvel now. So now we know why he gets a series. Why does he need a series? It's because he's going to betray Spider-Man, and he's going to have to take this pill from the villain every day and do what the villain wants if he wants to survive. So now we have a character that is someone we've been following who's part of this clone stuff. So it's not a character that 20 years ago died. It's a character we know from the present who's dealing with this, which might be an interesting perspective to see. So I like the new Electro. I like that. It's not a perfect issue. Still kind of feels corny to me, this story, this whole story arc. But overall, I thought it was a bit of an improvement, and I like the story a bit more, even though Peter wasn't really in this issue. So Amazing Spider-Man issue 17 is the backdoor pilot to Prowler. Let's just call it Prowler issue 0, because it very much is that. But it was an okay issue. I gave it 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Now we're moving on to number 5, which is Grimm Fairy Tales issue 125, which is the last issue of Grimm Fairy Tales ever. And I thought it was a solid issue. I will say my negative is the villain. I still didn't really care about him, and I don't think the story arc really built him up enough for me to care, and that gives a little less weight to the final battle. But I like Grimm Fairy Tales. Oh, sorry, I moved the chair. I like that Grimm Fairy Tales gives that, kind of happy ending, but not a happy ending. And it follows its theme, where a regular fairy tale is always about happy endings. But with Grimm Fairy Tales, it's usually negative endings. But it's also about sad endings. And we get to see that here. We have people die, we have people come back. But at the same time, you have a little glimmer of hope in the end. So overall, I liked it, especially for the character moments. I like kind of this charmed moment where it's like you see their future, you don't know if it's actually their future or not, but you take it anyways. So I liked it overall. I give it 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is the Astonishing Ant Man issue 11, which is a solid issue. It kind of slows down the pace for the story, but I liked it. I kind of hate that this is like one of the last issues of the series, and that makes it a little lower for me, but it's Scott dealing with him being in jail. We see that She-Hulk is going to help him out in the next issue. Really like the Cassie moments where they're both like talking to each other through their abilities. I love that scene. And I think Cassie's kind of understanding, oh wait, I kind of screwed up. And my dad's not as bad as I thought he was. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. I like that she still has her powers. Also interested to see how her family deals with this. Her other side of the family deals with this. Her stepdad and her mom. That will be a very interesting, hopefully, scene we see in the future. But yeah, I like that it's also Scott dealing with his other supporting cast, like Miss Thing, his other buddies he had, and seeing how they deal with Scott being in jail. So again, it's a slower issue, but I enjoyed it, and I give it 4 stars. So that was number 4. So we are moving on to number 3, which is Miss Marvel issue 10, which I really enjoyed. There's a lot of emotion here. Kind of wish we got to see more of the supporting characters. It's definitely more focused on Bruno and Kamala in this issue. I thought we would get to see like Zoe and Josh and Nakia, but I'm guessing they're saving that for the next issue. It's a very well done Bruno Kamala issue where we learn why they became friends in the first place. We learn more about Bruno and why it's so heartbreaking for Kamala to see Bruno like this. And her still staying true to her character though, which I really liked about this issue, is that she has a time to confront Captain Marvel. She doesn't go out of character and say, Captain Marvel, I hate you. She doesn't do kind of this Kitty Pryde moment. She instead that's still her mentor. That's someone she loves still. And she wants to make her proud, but at the same time she knows it's wrong. So she kind of like tiptoes around the subject where she's like, I don't want to do this anymore, but at the same time I don't want to disappoint you. And I thought that was really realistic to Kamala's character and what we know about that relationship between her and Captain Marvel, this kind of idol now mentor. So I like that they didn't like kind of do this weird 360 with Kamala, even though she's going through some emotions. But yeah, it's a really solid issue that shows that Civil War II is coming close to home with Kamala, which makes so much sense to Kamala's character and why this is probably one of the strongest Civil War II tie-ins, especially into an ongoing series. So Miss Marvel issue 10 gets 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is another kind of slow-paced issue but needed issue, and that is Spider-Gwen issue 11. I thought this was a really solid issue where we get to see Gwen question herself about being a hero, but in the weirdest place she finds with Bodega Bandit that even without powers, she still should be Spider-Gwen. And that's kind of what I really like, even though I don't love storylines where the superhero gets their powers taken away. It's sometimes really the strongest for character for character development. And we see that with Gwen, where, you know, the classic Spider-Man quote is, with great power must also come great responsibility. But here, she has no power, but she still has that responsibility. And so it's kind of a play on that Spider-Man quote. So I thought it was a really solid issue that, yes, it doesn't really progress the story a lot, but it's a world-building issue, and it's a character development issue. So I liked it. Spider-Gwen issue 11 gets 4 stars. So what was number 1? What was pick of the week? That was All New Wolverine Annual issue 1. I was blown away by this comic. I loved it so much. I really enjoyed it because with annuals, especially with Marvel, I feel like they tend to do the short story route, which is, oh, let's tell this kind of good short story, and then you might not like the next one, and you spend like $4.99 on this book, and it has nothing really to do with the actual story. Now you can take the other route of an annual where it's really important to the story, which is usually in the old days, that's what annuals were about. Or you take this route, which I think Tom Taylor kind of takes a refreshing route that we haven't seen in a while with annuals, and that's just tell a fun story. One fun story that you don't necessarily have to read, but if you're a fan of these characters, you kind of have to read. And that's what All New Wolverine does. And it's the coolest team up between Spider-Gwen and Laura, or Spider-Gwen and Wolverine, where they switch bodies. And at first you think it's like, oh, we're never going to find out how they switch bodies. Tom Taylor tells that story. How did they actually switch bodies? But it makes it interesting because they're superheroes. They're not just girls switching bodies. First of all, it's interesting because they have different personalities. They interact with each other supporting characters, and they test out each other's powers. They have no idea how to use each other's powers for at least half the issue. And that's half the fun of the issue. It's like you're reading a superhero story, you want to have moments like that, small details like that, where Gwen is mending her body together. She's like, ew, this is so disgusting. She puts claws in her face. Or when Wolverine's playing the drums, or Laura's playing the drums as Gwen and puts a hole in her drum set. And that's the last word she tells Gwen. It's like, hey, I kind of put a hole in your drum set. Bye! Hopefully we have another team up. And also, I feel like Tom Taylor did his research very well with Spider-Gwen, with adding Spider-Ham into it when Spider-Gwen's hallucinating. So if you like Wolverine, you'll love this. You'll love this issue. If you enjoy Spider-Gwen, you'll love this issue. But if you enjoy both characters like I do, you will have a blast with this issue. No doubt about it, this was my pick of the week, and I gave it 5 stars. This is how you do an annual, and I really, really enjoyed it and had a blast with this issue. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Don't forget to like my Facebook page for Like Father, Like Daughter, and check out Like Father, Like Daughter. And also, tell me in the comments below, what books did you enjoy this week? Your worst pick of the week, your best pick of the week, and everything in between. And of course, I'll have Comic Uno episode again next week. So I will see you guys later. Bye.